Hey, hey, ho, ho, we got us another Brunner book. I'm beginning to think that it's my local little free library that I found the two in because it's a rarity. Let's just put it that way. I did the last two, and this one's Quicksand. It's written a little later. Let's see. This was actually published, I think, in the 80s. Maybe not. No, 76. But the copyright of the story is 67. And in parts of it, it shows some of that sort of new wave of science fiction type flavoring, right? Still very much linked to its time and place in terms of I don't know, the way things are written about, etc. But definitely moving away from where the last couple were, which felt a little bit more restrained and more to my liking, to be honest. This one, what's kind of interesting about it, the main character is a psychiatrist who has had his own psychological issues, as so many psychiatrists have, actually. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I don't think doctors tend to be people who, have serious medical issues or stuff like that, but so often people who go into psychiatry or psychology are pretty fucked up. At least that's the trope. But anyway, yeah, and trying to figure out how much I can tell without giving away, but essentially, he's in a country loony bin, and is, just by happenstance, runs into a situation where he's hunting down someone who attacked someone. And it turns out that someone who attacked someone is, this very slight girl, and, takes her in, she doesn't speak, takes her into the hospital, she doesn't speak any English. And everything's very, very weird, and the whole story seems to be about, like in the other two books I read, and maybe this is a through line through a lot of his stories, seems to be about people just sort of being able to slip into a different place or time. And in this case, it's time, but could also be looked at as parallel universes and stuff like that. And the story goes through, his attempts to try to understand who and where she's from, and this sort of magical land where everything, this kind of utopian land. And then it starts taking a weirder and weirder turn, where you're not sure what he's discussing is reality or not, because he has his own delusions. And it just starts accelerating and getting stronger and stronger along those lines. I think you're supposed to view the ending of the book as real. But Brunner doesn't manage to sort of stick the landing well enough on this. And this is one of the problems I have with some of that new wave type of science fiction, and you see it in this Alasni in the Amber stories when he's transiting different uh, different dimensions and whatnot, just sort of this blur, almost stream of consciousness type stuff. And you see it here in a similar sort of place where there's these sharp jarring switches as the story changes and changes and changes. And it stops doing that at the end. But I found the ending was almost like it was rushed out, and I don't know. That sort of stream of consciousness type writing doesn't terribly appeal to me. Um, I get what it's trying to do and what it's trying to reflect, and it never hits me in quite the right way. What did hit me in quite the right way with this, and I mean, the story drew me in, and I wanted to know what was going on and everything, and then when it kind of came to the answer, I found it both so bleak and so kind of unexpected. I actually was half expecting the whole thing was a delusion of his, to tell you the truth, kind of a occurrence at Owl Creek type of thing as the whole story. And I'm still not absolutely convinced it's not, because he goes through a series of hallucinations or whatever that come rather rapidly. And what he actually supposedly manages feels unreal enough that I'm kind of left with the, other than how long it is, how long the ending of the story is, it's hard to see it as any different from these other little flashes, and it could just be he's settling into his own insanity there. What also was intriguing to me is I'm coming to realizations that, not like before where I would just say this is not my world or something along those lines, knowing that there's nothing here for me. Now I'm beginning to feel less and less capable. The little mechanisms that I've built in my life that worked but were off at an angle to what everybody else is doing, well, they're falling apart. They're not sufficient, and I don't feel like I have the flexibility. I said this in the gaming video as well. I don't feel like I have the flexibility to adjust anymore. That I've taken this path, and it was a workable path in a lot of ways, but is now turning into something that, both due to my aging, but also due to changes in the world, isn't holding up at all. And I feel myself sort of slipping away in this sort of same sense as in this story. Anyway, this one's a lot harder to recommend because it's not the kind of science fiction I like. In fact, it almost feels like it's not science fiction for most of it. And only if you buy the ending do you agree that it is. I was expecting a twist at the end without necessarily predicting it, except that maybe he was just entirely crazy. The twist wasn't pulled off well enough, in my view, and it was incredibly depressing. Although, given the main character's actions, I don't know how it could have been anything but, unless, it turned into some sort of real magical, wonderful thing. But this guy is just sort of a sad sack, hey, like me, throughout. And if anything becomes worse, his character arc actually shows him as even less stable and less capable of finding anything reasonable in it all. But, you know, it's a Brunner, so I'm going to keep it. But it really wasn't my taste. Now, the other ones were 95 cents each from, 5 years earlier. This comes out at $1.50. I like considering the prices of these guys, right? And I don't know, maybe they were like 150 pages, I think. This one's 220. So I don't know, maybe 40% bigger, 45% bigger, somewhere in there. I don't want to do math. But I don't think price is all that affected by the size of a book. Yeah. The amount of paper matters nowadays more, I guess. But it feels like there was just like a spike in prices. And, we may have been hitting into the inflationary period already here. So we may have just seen a hike. But I'm thinking that books weren't that much. They were about this price when, like, I was buying them new, which would be like late 70s, early 80s. And this is, this printing, like I said, was 76. So yeah, maybe this is about my era. Not far from it. Certainly, under $2 was normal. So yeah, okay. Because those other ones were actually printed significantly later than the date they were written as well. I've dumped them behind my boxes, so I don't know. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting to look at the price. I forgot to show you something. Oh, fuck. Did I dump them? No. I don't think I can find them easily here. Yeah, one of them, and this is weird because, by the time I was buying books, there weren't things like this, but I remember this from some of the older ones. One of them had, like, an insert into the binding of a cigarette ad, like a glossy couple of pages of cigarette ad in there. And I can remember some of the older books having an ad in them. I would usually rip them out. Now I'm leaving it in because it's just such a weird little thing, like a piece of like reality that just isn't there. It reminds me of, oh fuck, I'm trying to remember. Oh boy. Now I'm having trouble with names, just recalling stuff up. Oh, like I can name things like Cat's Cradle and Player Piano, but the name is just not coming into my head. But one of his stories was actually about, like, I think the book had like porn in it or something. But it may have been just printed in a porn magazine or something. My brain is really turning to mush. It's getting harder and harder to reach for names. And I mean, you don't have to note it in the responses. I'm sure it'll hit me again many times. But yeah, it really sucks to be, losing the mental acuity this quickly. Anyway, or at least memory capabilities. Up it goes, I guess.